So I just came back from, well, not just, but today, at the time of recording this, it's the 11th. I don't know when I'm going to upload this. Hopefully the day after. Hopefully. We're doing a quote unquote review, quote unquote, of Superman. I do not see my opinion as a actual, like, educated critique. I'll be honest. I love films. I love comics. But don't trust my opinion too much here. I'm just gonna actually do this in reverse. So it's gonna be spoiler and not spoiler. Sorry, not spoiler and spoiler. Not that part. That part's not gonna be reversed. But I'm going to tell you the rating, and then I'll do the explanation, just so I feel like everybody doesn't skip to the end and all that stuff. I just want to save you time. I think the movie's an 8 out of 10. I don't really use ratings as like a strict indicator of like, oh, this is a. It just uses a broad thing. Like I said, it's not an educated opinion, right? Like, don't take it too seriously. But I looked around. I think generally it's not really maybe a consensus. I think it's more everyone kind of feels similarly that it's a good movie. But there are topics that for whatever reason get brought up about the movie. I'm not going to touch on those, to be 100% frank. I'm just going to touch it from a fan's perspective. From a fan's perspective, going into non-spoiler stuff, I will add, I have not seen, what is it called? The Creatures thing that James did. James Gunn has done more in terms of the cinematic stuff for this world he's making for the DCU. I have not seen any of those. So a lot of that stuff, like, I was kind of aware when it showed up that like things referring to those old things, but generally speaking, this is my first experience to Gunn's new DC universe, which is pretty good so far. Again, non-spoiler, the time period and everything I think is good. I think the way he approached the exposition of explaining things is really good. I prefer this over what we've seen before. The tone is pretty cheerful without being childish. I think it's child friendly to a certain degree. Generally, it's pretty safe, right? It's not Man of Steel, where I feel like Man of Steel gets pretty dark at times. Which, interesting enough, going through in my head, I feel like if I were to talk about this movie briefly, the performances are what I think were the highlight of the movie for me. The performances, the plot is okay. I just feel like it could have been better, quote unquote. As for how, there's options. I feel like that's too broad of a specification, but to me, I've noticed me kind of going, I'm really enjoying myself because of the world and the characters, but I think the plot itself is a bit okay, right? Lex Luthor is clearly in the movie. He's clearly the villain. There are other villains that are in the movie, but Lex is like kind of the main aficionado, which, by the way, wow, Lex Luthor was pretty good. He was pretty good, man. Superman was pretty good. Anytime they talked to each other, I was like, this is comic book stuff, man. Going into that though, it's not really modern comic book stuff. It does feel more older stuff. I don't know about Lex necessarily. I don't really pay attention to older Lex, but in terms of Superman, for sure, dude. For sure, man. The demeanor, the behavior, the way he talked and everything, massive old school Silver Age Superman. So I'm a fan of that. I'm a fan of that for sure. The other characters were interesting. Obviously Lois, sure. Jimmy, fun. Jimmy was super fun in this movie. A lot of laughs, but some of the side characters, which some of them I can't talk about because they didn't show up in the trailer, were really fun. Especially the character at the end is really fun. How they're introduced and everything, I thought was a cool vibe. If you know who I'm talking about, you know who I'm talking about. But yeah, the rest of the cast, like obviously you see Hawkgirl, you see Mr. Terrific, you see Green Lantern. Surprisingly, they grow on you like a lot. Like, I'm not saying surprising as in I thought they would be bad, but surprising as in I was oddly comfortable with the cast choice. Like, obviously I was like, they're all performing really well, but why it's those three, I have no idea. All of them, well, okay, Hawkgirl was okay. I think Hawkgirl didn't really get too much moments, but Green Lantern and Mr. Terrific were striking to me. I was like, these two are cool. I don't know why these two specifically are on a team together, but regardless, because there's other Green Lanterns, and I'm like, what are they doing? I know there's a Lanterns movie. I think it's a movie coming out. I'm very, very excited for that now, because I'm like, after Guy, I'm like, well, I wonder what the other ones have been doing, because they're around. They're definitely around. And the way they talk about Superman and all that, it does feel like a very, very connected world. When you're in the movie, you kind of see, like, obviously there's a lot of social commentary happening, but I think, again, I don't want to touch on it too much, but there's clearly metaphors here and there, but I think it's appropriate and has been done literally, like, I can't even count. I know of at least maybe 3 times it's been used for Superman specifically when it comes to global conflict and whether he should interfere or not. It's a very, very, very common trope for Superman, so I don't find it that strange. But yeah, the ending was really wholesome. Like Superman's challenge from like start to finish, his development with Lois, his eventual like challenges that Lex puts him through. It gets pretty dark and pretty steep and kind of sad. I'll be honest, it gets really sad. There is one big change. Not big, but generally a change there. I think what I'll end off with this is that I enjoy the movie, but there is some interesting choices that I think could be rectified or not rectified, and I don't know where Gunn wants to go with this in terms of Superman's lore. It's not a big deal, but it's something maybe for context that like there is some slight changes that he's done for plot convenience of usage of different concepts, 2 specific concepts in my head. But yeah, generally the arc that Superman goes through, especially thanks to Lois and, well, I would say Lois, but more his friends. I think his friends is a good way to put it. His friends and Lex Luthor, I think, really make a very nice dynamic. His friends and family and Lex. There's clearly a dichotomy of how these two, like, affect him, these 2 different parties. Obviously, Lex is a person, and Lois is not just Lois. It's like his family, his friends. But it's really cool. It's really, really cool. And it feels really natural. It feels like it is a Superman movie instead of just like, here's Superman in this movie and we're just doing it so we have like a DCU thing. I'm like, well, I don't know if I really wanted that. So yeah, pretty solid. 8 out of 10. Spoiler part. I'm going to try and make this shorter because I realized I took like almost 9 minutes. The 2 concepts I was talking about, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. His parents, they didn't really rectify it, quote unquote. It wasn't like, oh, it was like a front or whatever. It was a slight bit of confusion in my head if they were gonna go with the route of that's what they were actually saying, or if it was like Lex fabricated it. I don't know. It was never mentioned at the end because clearly at the end he changes the footage of his parents to his adoptive parents. So I don't know. That's my guess. Also, Supergirl is around. Kind of cool that Krypto was like such a big part of the movie. I don't want to touch into him in the non-spoiler because I feel like everything Krypto does needs context, and there's all the times with the droids, with the T-spheres, but then eventually like with the commands with Ultraman, who ended up being a clone, which I think was really good because Ultraman is just Superman in context. It's not the Ultraman, but it's an Ultraman, which is the only character. Sorry, no. It's the only villain that died. There was a character that died, the guy that got shot. Man, that sucked. That really, really sucked. I felt so bad for Supes. I teared up a little bit when he came out of it and he saw his parents, and his parents were gushing about him, and I was like, man, this is so wholesome, dude. It's so wholesome. It felt really, really Smallville, very Kent family, which listen, I don't mind Man of Steel. I think it's fine, but I think a lot of Superman's struggles feel really like melancholy. Like they feel really melancholy because he's absent of his company. Like I just don't feel like he had supportive group. You know what I mean? He didn't have like, yeah, he had Lois, sure, but doesn't have Jimmy as a friend or his family. It just feels like because the Daily Planet is so chock full of character and personalities, it feels like he really has a home. You know what I'm saying? So even though he's technically not there towards the end, it does legitimately feel like he has friends and he has company. So it doesn't feel like his challenges are just him alone, especially as a superhero. Him having the Justice Gang with him, which I thought was a funny name, and I really want to see where the development goes. It was super wholesome, but man, every single thing with Lex Luthor, they did not miss a beat. Every single thing. When he was like, "You're full of envy, Lex," he was like, "Of course I'm full of envy. Of course I'm full of envy." And then changing it into quote unquote racism. You could look at the symbolism, sure, but at the same time, it's more specifically him going like, "Here's this person that wants to call himself man." And it is weird. Like I don't agree with Lex, but I am saying like you kind of like start to understand what he says. Oh, of course I'm envious. I'm well aware of like I seep of envy. I envy Aristotle. I envy Galileo. But at least these guys did something and didn't just spring about. Just be given their accomplishments and reverence for just existing. Superman. And I was like, that's literally to a T what this character is. And also he's young, which I think is interesting, that you have such an imposing and good Lex Luthor when he feels kind of young relatively. Normally Lex, I feel him as like a little bit of an older character, like a man who's like maybe in his 40s. I know he's not usually that old, but like I don't know, something about his demeanor and stuff just feels like he'd be older. But this is definitely a Lex that would age well. I feel like he would age pretty well. So the fact that this is the first time they actually properly meet, and he likes to focus on that. It's like, ooh, 2 times in one day. Wow, how lucky of me. But yeah, the second concept of apart from his parents, I don't know if they'll change that later. Maybe there's like I think the parents thing is a little controversial, but I was gonna say the second thing. I'll go back to the parents maybe, but like the second thing was the negative zone. I assume it was the negative zone. What Lex was using, the pocket dimension. I believe that's probably just the version of the negative zone, but this time it's something that Lex uses instead of Superman, which I think is fine. I think it's fine. It makes sense. Because I think Superman isn't the type of guy, maybe, well, I mean, he hasn't met Zod yet, so we'll see how that goes, right? But there's certain villains that, obviously he hasn't fought anyone that is super strong, that he would have to be like, oh, I need to find a place to safely, keep this person under control and make sure they don't harm anyone. So, I mean, considering everyone is literally hired by Lex in this movie, it's out of his control anyways. So, yeah, and this Clark Kent feels a little more innocent, right? Like, as Lois says, you see the good in people regardless, which is interesting because even with Lex, he talks to him as if, Lex is not aware of this obsession. And he's like, no, I'm very much aware of my obsession and what impact you have on me. He was like, you think I did all of this for that country? Which, by the way, the country thing, it was a plot point. I don't really want to go into it too much because, to be honest, I didn't find it incredibly interesting. Like, let's be honest, the plot could have been something else and Lex would have still been able to say the same thing. Which is like, you think I went through all that trouble just for that? No. I did it to get at you. It's always you. It's always about you. I'm trying to end you. I'm trying to kill you. Which, wow, it was. I had the biggest grin and smile on my face when he was flying up and those two were trying to hang on to him. It's like, I'm trying, when he's getting engulfed by the thing. And I was like, even though his life is in danger, I was smiling for him because I was like, man, he's so strong. I was like, that is Superman. The fact that I was like, dude, I know he doesn't seem like invincibly strong, but there's something Silver Age about him just being able to do something and being like, wow, his lungs are filled with that stuff though. How is he able to breathe? It's like, he's Superman. He's Superman. So yeah, there was a lot of moments like that I really appreciated. So yeah, I think that's mostly all of it that kind of touches into mostly, okay, so like his parents, I'm wondering if the direction is also like, it's not terrible because in a way it is like a foreign custom, right? Like it's a foreign direction how you look at it. I mean, I have to remember the exact wording, but I believe the wording is something like, they're a less developed species, which might be true, but you have to phrase it like that. It's very disrespectful. And then the other thing is obviously like the harem thing, which I thought was crazy that they said that a few times. I was like, imagine having to explain your kid what a harem is. But Yeah, I think that those concepts are interestingly. I had someone ask me, I was like, they were like, do you think this is anti-immigrant? And I'm like, I don't know if that's the right word. I feel like this is maybe just like a direction you take that, yeah, sometimes you cherish where you come from, but that is perhaps alienated from where you are adopted. You know what I mean? Like, if you have first generation or that experience of like having a family overseas with different customs and stuff, there's a bit of, yeah, a disconnect, misunderstanding of how things work, right? So to me, I don't see it as a villainization of Kal-El's family, but maybe more so kind of something that Cal was uncomfortable with, that clearly he was, we know what parents raised him. And to be honest with you, like, if they ever come back, sure, but I don't really feel like these two characters are meant to come back in terms of like discussion or whatever. I think they're just meant to be as a symbol, right? When that is not the direction I would have wanted them to go, not really, but I see the point in it, right? It just so happened that Lex found something, and you know, and Superman has to work with it. And as Lois said at the beginning, and as we get to the end of the movie, Superman has to come to accept how to explain his actions, or you know, just be a little more upfront first, you know, before making rash choices. So accepting that, yeah, he's in the wrong is part of it for sure. So yeah, in terms of those two changes, I think it's a bit of a, I think the only, those things are not really what makes it an 8 and not like a 9 or a 10. The only things that don't make it a 9 or a 10, lastly, are just plot choices. To me, I find a little less interesting than maybe they could have been, right? Like, I think the plots of other ones, like Zod coming in to try and take over Earth, I know it's cliche, but you know, I like it. You know, it feels like Superman has a villain to fight, but Lex obviously is Lex Luthor, and I would rather have Lex way more than any other villain. Freaking bro, if there's Superman 2, just do Lex again. I wouldn't mind, but they probably won't. Lex will be around for sure, but he won't be like the main villain again. Maybe he will, but yeah, I wouldn't mind it, don't get me wrong, but I'm just kind of like, again, all the characters, all the world that was built, and the performances were amazing. Plot wise, interesting choices. That's all I have to say. I'm just kind of like, I think they were cool. I think they were neat. If they were cool, they're all right. You know, I love Mr. Terrific. I love, you know, Guy Gardner. I think they all did an amazing job. Do I kind of wish they were doing maybe something more fantastical for themselves? Yeah, a little bit. Some of it felt a little bit like, it was cool seeing the day-to-day stuff. One of my favorite scenes in the movie, just standing off, him and Lois talking, and then he, you know, the big eyeball on the background, and you see like the Green Lantern bat he's making, baseball bat, and he's swinging. He's like, yeah, they got it. And I was just chuckling the entire time. The whole theater's just having a good time. So, you know, I found it pretty fun. So hopefully you guys did too. If you guys look forward to all the, you know, me doing reviews of, quote unquote reviews, my thoughts on mostly comic book movies, because that's usually what I'm kind of more interested in, then you know what to do. Like, subscribe. Obviously, Fantastic Four is coming up pretty soon, and I'll probably do a video on that too. So if you're looking forward to that, you know what to do. I'll catch you guys then. Hope you guys have a good one. Take care, peace, and goodbye.